The theme of this meeting is on fiscal policy, trade, private sector, a strategy for Africa. Basically, we're looking at how we can expand the base of production, how we can create a more inclusive manufacturing environment, how can we use digital instruments to open up opportunities for our young people. And what has been demonstrated very clearly in Africa is that African youth, they've demonstrated capacity to be able to come to terms with the reality of the digital economy. If we see the kind of changes and dynamics taking place, within the innovation sector of technology, we will see that our young people are doing a lot in that regard. So what do we need to do? We need to create the policy space for them. We need to give them incentives. We need to unlock the technological capacity of our. If we're able to do that, they will be able to not only move into the digital economy, but also to be employers themselves. Don't let us forget that companies like Facebook, like Google, they are some of the biggest companies in the world. They are based on digital economy. They are, and what stops Africa? And these companies are mostly established by young people. What stops Africa to be part of that age? I think what we need to do is to open up that space, to create that incentive regime for our young people to unlock their potentials in the technological sector. And I think with that, we'll be able to do a lot. And they will also become employers themselves, some of those who are on the cutting edge of innovation. So that's the kind of conversation going on here.
I suppose it's easier said than done, because I imagine, some of the things that you've just said are not new to many of the ears that you've been saying it to. What's making it so difficult for the done part of that said to happen?
I think it's a stream of things. One is the nature of our educational system that does not really allow that, flowering of talent to take place. That is more tailored toward certificates, rather than, innovation and creativity. That's something we need to pay more attention to in terms of our nature of educational system. The skills development, the policy environment itself. What is it that we're using to incentivize young people to be at the cutting edge of innovation? The few who have been able to show that kind of excellence, what have we done to promote them? That's what makes the difference. If you look at a country like Mauritius, the kind of progress they are making has to do with the space they've given to innovation, creativity and innovation. So that has to be our new language, particularly in the digital sector. How do we encourage young people? A lot of African youth, are very much interested in doing this. I recall discussing with some youth in a particular Southern African country, which is my region, and they are saying, we don't want the government to spoon-feed us. We want the government to unleash our potentials, our creativity. That's what we want. Create the space for us. Let us move with this. And if we look at the experience of India, that is making so much progress, it is predicated on software technology, which is being driven by young people in India. So that's the kind of incentive regime that we need to create to be able to open up that environment for them to be able to move and drive development. And it has to be tied also with the educational system.
One of the common themes at this year's conference is that of the AFCFTA, because we were just looking. We're within reach of finally getting all the ratifications needed. How do you think will more intra-Africa trade boost opportunities for young people?
Open up markets, encourage the unleashing of innovation and creativity, allow the economies of scale. There are, many young people who are doing things but at a very small scale. And they want to move transborder. They want to move to the next country. They want to do business. They want to link up with each other. They want to form trade networks. That's what it's all about. It will allow them to be able to network, to do things better, to collaborate with each other, and it will break down barriers. And we need to support this also with a very good information base, which we're trying to do at ECA, that allows businesses to connect easily, that allows young people to share information very rapidly and be able to do what they need to do well. And I think, like I said before, we need to also improve the incentive environment nationally that allows them to be able to grow, their businesses, their small businesses, and be able to drive.
And certainly, I'm sure, allows more private sector involvement to absorb those young people who are not necessarily entrepreneurs, because we're not all the same. But the education system, as you highlighted, is really key to ensuring that this problem is dealt with vigor. Transforming that education system, though, is not a cheap task. My question is, in your conversations with governments within the region about the overhauling of the education system to teach young people the skills of the future, does the question of where the money is going to come from arise, and if so, what's the answer to this?
I think it's not only a question of money. I think it's also a question of approach. If you follow very closely the discussion in Finland, for example, they've decided that grading students, young people, is a disincentive to their own creativity. It demoralizes some and pushes some back. If you look at a country like Sweden, where for the first 7 years or more, children are basically taught to see things and use their hands and identify things rather than being books just going to their head. What am I saying? Simply, I'm saying that we need to fashion a system that allows people to think faster, not memorizing. Because the kind of system we have is that you have to memorize to be able to release what you have memorized. No, to be able to use your hands, to be able to think, to be able to connect things together. And that's what we need to do. And it will require redesigning our curriculum, bringing in some new things, begin to engage the fourth industrial revolution that is coming. What is it that we need to do? So it's about reorganizing our assets. It's not so much about putting more money. Reorganizing our assets, retooling those who are going to lead the process, and then we begin to inculcate this in the younger people. It's about doing things differently. And that's why in a lot of countries, the first 10, 15 years of education is done in the local language so that children can learn very fast. In Africa, it's done in English or French or Portuguese. So you see the difference.